Welcome to Reformation 2017, Re-Fermenting the Church, Part 3E. My name is Ron Rood. In Parts 3C and 3D, I talked about a new and destructive narrative or worldview that began to emerge among a few of the tens of thousands of cultures within our species just a few thousand years ago, and how this narrative threatens God's Tov and good world. Rather than embrace a worldview that had been the norm in all of nature for billions of years on Earth, including 200,000 years of Homo sapiens living, a norm that respected God's biosphere, knowing that roughly 7 miles up and 7 miles down, this is the zone where life lives. Rather than that, this new narrative began to claim overtly and covertly that Earth belongs to humans, and that we are separate from, superior to, the reason for, and the rulers of everything else. Cultures that began to embrace this anthropocentrism, this diva theology, this humanism, this focus on humans, grew more and more out of relationship, not only with human neighbors, and with our own inner spirits and souls and selves, and with God, but also out of relationship with God's creation. Instead of living as able leavers, to use Daniel Quinn's term, who take what is truly needed and then leave the rest for the well-being of the whole, these cultures became cane takers, who take and spew waste and defend their lifestyle, and take and spew waste and defend their lifestyle. And the whole creation groans in travail at the receiving end of this relentless assault under the steel boot of totalitarian living. What is totalitarian living? It refers to those voracious individual or systemic appetites for more and more, especially when those appetites are combined with a near total ignorance of or willful disregard for the communal and long-term consequences affecting the whole community of life. Well, this state of affairs posed a huge dilemma for the Creator, namely, to destroy us or try to heal us. What would the Creator do? Well, thankfully for us, the Creator decided to not destroy us for the sake of the world, but to try and heal us for the sake of the world. And this is the gospel, the good news, not only for our species, but for the whole community of life that has suffered so egregiously under Cain's administration. In other words, in addition to God's primary mission, God's full-time job, the unfolding story of life, which is brilliantly recorded in the scriptures of geology and DNA and fossils and tree rings and stardust and microscopic particles, and is read by every ecosystem and species in the universe in their own language, the Creator recently took on an additional job, a secondary mission, to try and heal our species and to restore us to God's primary mission. This secondary mission is recorded in another form of God's scriptures called the Bible, and is the substance of two relatively brand new religions, Judaism and Christianity. This gospel is addressed to humans and humans alone, not because we are so special or because God somehow loves us more than all the other ecosystems and species in the community of life, but because we are the one species at war with God and with what God holds dear, and are in need of a deep tissue, heart and soul, inside out, spiritual, top to bottom, down to the bone, healing. Well, after working in and through many of what might be called healing therapies portrayed in the Old Testament, a flood parable, creating a chosen people, escape from slavery in Egypt, and wilderness school in the Sinai desert for 40 years to learn how to live the able way, laws, kings, and prophets. And after sending countless Abels to try and break down the hardened heart of Cain, including rabbis, and those who give voice and try to live God's prophetic word, and sages from many different cultures, and indigenous peoples who are even today using all they can and all of their wisdom to try and resist Cainism and outcasts, and especially the loaded with wisdom wider community of life who must be deeply puzzled and threatened and saddened by the creativity and staying power of humanity's troubling dysfunction. At one point in history, about 2,000 years ago, God decided to come in person. However, God couldn't actually show up in person. The deity is too big, too awesome, too infinitely expansive and overwhelming, so that if God's glory showed up in person, well, we would all have heart attacks, acute myocardial infarctions, and would probably fall over dead. So, God emptied self of self, as Paul beautifully says in liturgical form in Philippians 2, and became a placental mammal of the species Homo sapiens. Well, why did God incarnate as a human creature? God is not a human being, just like God is not a jellyfish or an oak tree or a horse. If horses had been the species in need of restoration, a horse may have been the one that was born in Bethlehem. Or if bacteria had not been doing their job, or an antelope jackrabbit, or a leatherback sea turtles, that's who the Christmas story would have been about. But it was the human creature that was lost. And the Christ of God came to seek and to save the lost. With a powerful message: Homo sapiens, you are forgiven. Follow me. You are forgiven for being at war with all that I hold dear, including your human neighbors, including nature's ecosystems and communities of life, including your own inner spirit and soul. And you are forgiven for being at war with me. And I will forgive you today. I will forgive you tomorrow. I will forgive you the next day, and 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 the next day. But contrary to what we might think, forgiveness is not the gospel. God doesn't say, Homo sapiens, I forgive you for being at war with your neighbor and with nature and with your inner spirit and with me. Now go write a bunch of praise songs and liturgies telling me how wonderful you think I am, that I justify you by grace through faith, which was the foundational message of the Protestant or Lutheran Reformation. An improvement certainly over the medieval Catholic theology, but nevertheless not quite, in my view, at the heart and soul of God's 13.7 billion year story of life and God's more recent story of Israel and Jesus. No, God actually wants to repair and to mend and to restore us. So besides the sweet announcement of forgiveness, Jesus also says, follow me. And not just follow me as opposed to following someone or something else, but follow me as opposed to staying where you are. But follow you where, Jesus? Well, follow me. I want you to meet your human neighbor. And of course, Jesus had to go and say that my neighbor is not just people I like or people like me, but my neighbor is also the stranger and strange one, outcasts, and those marginalized by church and society. My neighbor is the alien and the illegal alien. My neighbor is even my enemy. Jesus says, Ron, come with me. You need to be restored to meaningful relationship with your estranged neighbor, and I will take you there. Several years ago, I took my Lutheran campus ministry students to the country of Haiti in the Caribbean to work with orphaned children. One morning, we also went to Mother Teresa's baby hospital to hold babies and toddlers who were very ill. Some of these sick children had families, others were all alone in the world. Some would be getting well, others would not. One of our students held a baby for the first time in his life. Could it be that the risen Christ had said to him, "Come with me, David. I want you to meet your neighbor"? I think so, because the experience changed him in ways that are still unfolding. The goal, of course, is for all to have enough and none too much, because to not have enough is deadly, and to have too much is deadly. Jesus also says, follow me. I want you to meet and see in a deeper way my family, nature, my creation. Homo sapiens, you aren't doing very well. You daily overconsume, you overpollute, you treat my animals, my soil, my water, my house with frightening disregard. There is a denigration of my Father's beloved world being perpetrated by you. You are a predatory species and behaving in an anti-God manner. And I hear the cries of the community of life groaning in travail. Ron, you have much to learn about my more excellent way. Come with me, follow me into honorable relationship and restored respect with the ecosystems and life forms in the Creator's cherished and Tov world. The goal is to take what is truly needed and leave the rest. Cain is dumbfounded by this holy ethic, but Jesus has an entirely different worldview than Cain. Also, follow me to meet your own inner spirit and soul and self. There is an emptiness and deep alienation within you that is making you try to fill this hole with all kinds of nonsense. Follow me, Ron. You even need to meet yourself. And finally, follow me. I want you to meet my mother, my father. I-centeredness is killing you, and frankly, it's killing my world. You are disengaged from your Creator. You need to learn again what it means to embrace the one above all others and to live the prayer, hallowed be thy name. In other words, Jesus says, with my forgiveness as your initial and never-ending embrace, I want you to have the courage to go with me back into the Creator's household, wherein dwells my beloved. For he is our peace, breaking down the dividing wall of hostility, that he might create in himself a new humanity. He came and proclaimed peace to those far off and those near. So then you are no longer strangers and aliens, but citizens of the household of God. In the next Ron Talks 3F and 3G, we will look at opponents to God's primary mission and God's secondary mission within human culture and within some Christian doctrines.